Hey, welcome back everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hope we're having a wonderful middle of the week here, and hopefully we all made it through yesterday all right. We had some pretty feisty storms, including multiple confirmed tornadoes yesterday from Nebraska through Iowa and even into Illinois, I believe. So we definitely talked about that in yesterday's video. I said we had the potential for that, and sure enough, it definitely unfolded that way as the atmosphere was much more juiced up yesterday than maybe Monday night, which was maybe kind of reverse from what a lot of people expected maybe a couple days ago. But that's the way it panned out rather. And we're going to continue the trend. We're going to do it all again today. More severe weather once again tomorrow before kind of another system starts knocking on the doorstep in time for our weekend, which could bring some impacts as well as a big time temperature cool down going into early next week. So with all that said, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and of course share it with anybody that you think might find some interest in it. Now, taking a look at current watches, warnings, and advisories, we do have some special weather statements up through Kentucky and Indiana. Same story for Michigan. Again, as that next line of storms is kind of approaching, definitely, again, going to cause some impacts. Other than that, though, we're relatively quiet. We do have some snow falling up through Montana and Wyoming, specifically the higher elevations up in those states, which, again, is definitely going to make it feel a little bit more winter-like, but that's also kind of the beginning of that cold air mass that is on the horizon for a lot of folks. Now, current radar imagery so far, we are already kind of starting it off with a bang here. Again, here's that low pressure system, and kind of on the tail of it, we're already having that area of cells and kind of even discrete cells kind of beginning to develop there into northern Indiana and portions of Michigan. All of this will slowly slide eastbound throughout the day, and eventually we could have a pretty big time tornado threat kind of in this circled area up into western Ohio, southeastern Michigan, and into northeastern Indiana. Again, a couple tornadoes are definitely possible, but even outside of there, we're going to see some impacts from the rain this afternoon. Again, this area of rainy weather stretching all the way through the eastern part of the country. Had some rain here in Charlotte this morning, raining likely in Knoxville here soon, Nashville, back down towards Huntsville. Going to probably rain in Atlanta, Asheville, Greenville, Spartanburg this afternoon. And same story for a lot of communities here in the Appalachia chain and even up into the northeast. Likely to see some of that rain today before all is said and done. Now, again, the big story today, though, is that severe weather threat. In fact, we do have a slight risk of severe weather, again, for many areas here, up from really extreme western Pennsylvania through basically all of Ohio into northeastern Indiana and into the southeastern section of Michigan. Likely to see some strong to severe storms today, but also another area here highlighted over the Kansas City area. Again, also could see some strong storms today and kind of the surrounding area. Now, that marginal risk of severe weather does stretch all the way back down, again, into those areas that are also seeing that line of storms this afternoon and evening. So, again, Nashville, Knoxville, Louisville, Pikeville, Kentucky, into Charleston, West Virginia, back down into northern Alabama and northwestern Georgia. Could also see some stronger storms this afternoon. Main threats there, though, would be straight line winds. Now, tornado threat today, the biggest area that has that threat obviously is going to be over here into portions of Ohio and Pennsylvania. Again, though, I would also mention kind of even in, I'm going to expand the area a little bit. Anywhere kind of in that circled area today is likely under the gun with the highest chance to see a couple isolated tornadoes. Very possible. And definitely, one of those setups that I think is conducive for tornadoes. So need to watch out for that throughout the day today. Also, a small area for the chance of a tornado or two. Here into portions of southern Kansas, specifically more southeastern Kansas. So make sure you have a way to get watches and warnings in that area as well, where a couple tornadoes are not something we can rule out. All right, so just to first of all back this up a little, I'm going to start by just kind of starting in the zoomed out view here, and then we will zoom into the severe weather threat areas more specifically. But again, a lot of people are going to be dealing with rain today, even if we aren't seeing severe weather. So let's kind of just zoom out and look at everywhere east of the Rockies as a whole, and move this ahead into this afternoon and evening. So again, by about the time we get into 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central Time, still some scattered showers here up into portions of the Northeast, also down through the Appalachia chain, potentially all the way down into portions of Mississippi and Louisiana. Could see some scattered showers and a couple rumbles of thunder this afternoon and evening. And then obviously at this point in time, that severe weather threat really kicking up here in that area we talked about. But again, I'm going to zoom in on that and talk about that a little bit more in detail here in just a moment. Again, though, by the time we get into overnight tonight, just quite rainy conditions through much of the Northeast, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, State College, up into New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Western Massachusetts, the Adirondacks, the Finger Lakes, the Catskills of New York State. Again, likely to see some of those showers working on through during this evening, and could definitely, even have some rumbles of thunder mixed in there as well. By the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, let me move this into tomorrow morning. Again, still just showery activity through much of the Northeast and back down into the Mid-Atlantic, with another storm system kind of getting its act together for our Thursday. And that one will be the start of another severe weather threat Thursday afternoon, which we will talk about here later on in the video. All right, diving in on today's severe weather threat a little bit more. Again, kind of looking specifically at this portion of your map on the left-hand side there, but noticing again by the time we get into this afternoon, this is about noon Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern. Some of these storms beginning to develop, and again, these could be quite feisty, folks. So this is about 3 o'clock. Our latest modeling really indicating these storms getting quite strong here from even central Michigan down south through portions of Ohio. And again, it's about this point that tornado threat is really going to pick up some, and we'll need to watch for the potential, again, for some of these cells to try to turn tornadic in nature. And that continues into 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Again, just a very feisty line of storms here working on through Michigan and northern Ohio. Also, though, a couple cells out in front could try to develop here. Likely less of a tornado threat here just because they're displaced some from those kinematics, but those storms could also be strong into western Pennsylvania before the line itself begins to move into western Pennsylvania about the time the sun is setting this evening. Again, you'll notice those strong storms rolling on through before finally, I think by the time we hit about midnight, the severe weather threat should begin to die down a little bit. Can't rule out a couple areas of gusty winds, some hail, and definitely a lot of lightning still during the overnight hours. But again, a lot of this dies down, getting into about 2 a.m. here, just very heavy rainfall from Philadelphia over through Trenton, New York City, and the Hudson River Valley getting in on some of that rain as well. And again, just stay showery through tomorrow morning, as we mentioned, stays that way throughout the afternoon with just widespread showers and maybe even a couple snow showers trying to mix in there through the higher terrains of Vermont and New Hampshire. But again, that's kind of the main story with today's severe weather threat, at least in this part of the country. Again, as we mentioned, also severe weather possible in the Kansas City area today. And this is from a completely different area that we're watching. You'll notice another area of low pressure, not low to pressure, I don't know what that is, but low pressure, again, tries to develop here over portions of Colorado later this afternoon and into this evening. And by the time we get into those overnight hours, right after the sun sets, and even especially getting closer towards midnight, some of these storms kind of, try to fire up here from that Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri point there and into the Kansas City area. And again, these have the chance to become strong to severe, strong winds, damaging hail, also a possibility. And as you noticed, again, earlier, whenever we looked at the tornado threat, the highest threat level was in here, but we're looking at this model and you're saying, well, there's not even really any storms developing here during the time frame. The big question will be if storms can develop. Again, if storms do develop there into portions of southern and southeastern Kansas, could have a tornado threat, but otherwise, could be a clear evening, at least in terms of storms. So much like we saw on Monday night, does that cap break or does that cap not break? Just such a tough thing to forecast in this part of the country. So we'll definitely continue to monitor that and watch radar throughout the day. Now, that's today. Tomorrow, we are going to do it all again with 2 areas already issued for slight risks. And honestly, I would not be surprised by the time we get to tomorrow to see these upgraded to enhanced risks of severe weather. But one big bullseye here over portions of southern Illinois, Indiana, southeastern Missouri, and into kind of that Arkansas, Tennessee and Kentucky, point there, if you will, under the gun for severe weather. Another area of note is back down towards Dallas. And kind of down towards the Waco area of Texas. But even all the areas in between here in that marginal risk could see strong storms tomorrow, and this does include the threat of tornadoes, but we'll get to that in a second. Hail threat tomorrow, again, on the chart there, definitely, especially in those 2 slight risk areas, having the highest chance of large hail. Wind, same story, kind of everyone that is at least in that marginal risk has the threat of some strong straight line winds. But as for the tornado threat, the main bullseye tomorrow is going to be right here over kind of that first area we talked about. And those storms, again, could get quite feisty as some of the latest model data is kind of pouring in. And that will not be the end of it. Going to have another threat of severe weather on Friday here through the I-85 and I-20 corridor from Birmingham, Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, Columbia, Fayetteville, Raleigh, Charlotte, Greensboro, and I could keep naming cities here in the Carolinas, but you get the point. Some strong storms possible here, including strong straight line winds and large hail. Tornado threat, I think, will be pretty low on Friday, but again, this time of the year, you cannot rule it out. But again, straight line winds and large hail are going to be the biggest threats on Friday. Alrighty, let's time this out a little bit for you. And again, I got to back up my map here, and we'll start tomorrow morning kind of where we left off a little bit. So again, 2 areas to watch, just some scattered showers in the northeast tomorrow morning. Also, this area of some scattered rain through Iowa and into Missouri, and kind of surrounding areas there could see some rain in the morning. Again, all due to that new low pressure that is kind of developing over Colorado today, as I talked about, and could bring that severe weather threat to the Kansas City area overnight tonight. But it's once we really get into tomorrow afternoon that things pick up a little bit. This is about 1 o'clock Eastern time and noon Central time, and you'll notice what was once just kind of a blob of rain now developing into a stronger line of storms crossing through Missouri, eventually through the St. Louis area, going into the afternoon hours, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock here, 6 o'clock. And about the time we get here to 6 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Central Time, give or take a couple hours, this is going to go from a small area impacted through Missouri and Illinois to a bigger area impacted as more storms begin to fire back down towards Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. And again, all of this is eventually going to, kind of start potentially as a little bit of a supercellular mode. Again, you'll notice in that threat area, some of these cells are a little bit more isolated in nature, but it likely won't take long for all this to congeal into a bigger line of storms, especially in the northern half. But we could have breaks here, again, kind of one line here, maybe another line down here, within those 2 separate slight risk areas, and then the areas in between in that marginal risk, still under the gun for severe weather, just going to be a little bit more hit or miss in nature. So again, here we go. That kind of swings on through, eventually crosses the Ohio River, into about that 8 to 10 o'clock p.m. time frame, and continues to march eastbound during the overnight hours, still likely bringing gusty winds as well as a lot of lightning and maybe some embedded hail there. And all of that continues even into Friday morning here, again, likely at this point crossing the Appalachia chain from Atlanta northbound all the way up through Ohio and Pennsylvania, and that sets the stage for that Friday threat. So again, remember Friday, the severe weather threat area is kind of in here, just a ballpark, and that's going to come from that same front that's bringing the severe weather tomorrow. It's going to kind of reinvigorate itself a little bit Friday afternoon as it taps into some of that Carolina instability. Again, could bring a couple supercells, maybe not supercells in nature, they might not be quite rotating, but again, some stronger storms that could bring some strong gusty winds as well as some hail. So that will be a threat to watch out for Friday afternoon as well. Before getting into this weekend, we have kind of a new threat to watch with a new type of storm system developing. So here we go. This is Saturday morning rather, and you'll notice again a lot of energy up here into Canada still, but this kind of just big overall area of energy that you're seeing is honestly just a big area of cold air that is slowly going to sink southbound and eventually kind of trough its way out here. I could probably pick a different color to make you see this a little bit better. But you get the point. This is going to kind of trough downwards, and eventually low pressure is going to develop over Texas and kind of slide eastbound here throughout the weekend, bringing with it a bit of a severe weather threat. So you'll notice here we go. That really develops going into Saturday and Sunday. Here's that area of spin or vorticity along that trough, slowly working eastbound through the southern tier of the country, and finally, eventually exiting out near the Carolinas by the time we get into overnight Sunday and Monday. Now, I will mention our models are kind of all over the place with the placement of this low pressure, the strength of it, but I'm going to show you the European model. It's a little bit more on the higher end of intensity here, just so you have a general idea of what this could look like this weekend. So here we go. Saturday morning, you'll notice, again, a lot of rain developing here from Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and, surrounding areas. Also some snow developing up into the higher terrains of Colorado and Nebraska here. Nebraska as well as Kansas. But it's going into Sunday afternoon that severe weather threat begins to kick up, specifically here through south central Texas and kind of along the Gulf Coast states. and that could stay that way through Saturday through much of the southern tier of the country before again on Sunday potentially another flare-up of severe weather, this time along the Carolina and Georgia coastline as well as into the Florida panhandle along kind of that area of low pressure with enhanced spin. Again, could even bring maybe a small tornado threat, but definitely some strong straight line winds out of this, I think, going into Sunday afternoon before I think finally we clear out going into Monday and Tuesday, and then we bring in that much cooler air. So kind of ingredients for severe weather here Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. The big area, again, going to be over south central Texas, but cannot rule out some of those ingredients even making it through the southern tier of the country from Louisiana all the way up through the Carolina coastline before eventually going into Sunday afternoon. Those ingredients move eastbound a little bit, again, along the Gulf Coast as well as along the Carolina coastline. Could see some stronger storms for our Sunday, and then eventually, again, that clears out going into early next week, mainly due to this bigger area of cold air that is on the way. So again, still above average temperatures through much of this week, but as we get into this weekend, this is Friday afternoon, you'll notice this big blob of well below average temperatures up into Canada and into the northern plains, diving southbound, and this is going to make things much chillier going into early next week. This is Saturday afternoon, you'll notice that cold air sinking south, really taking over for a lot of folks before eventually we get into Sunday afternoon, and especially Monday morning and Monday afternoon. Just about everyone here in the eastern half of the country is back to below average, even well below average temperatures, potentially 10 to 20 degrees below what we should be this time of year. So, definitely going to cool things off, make it feel a little bit nicer outside, and that could last through much of next week, maybe even a second shot of cold air later next week in kind of the 7 to 10 day time frame, which we'll definitely have to watch. And there's something I wanted to check very quickly, so give me 1 second. I just want to see if we had any outlooks on day 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. No. Okay, cool. Just making sure I didn't miss anything there for the video. But again, as I mentioned, strong storms on the horizon, definitely watching that through the next couple of days, and again, could last even through this weekend before a big time cool down and return to nicer weather going into next week. Alrighty, I appreciate y'all hanging in there with me. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning.